They were about to throw out the wrong person, and they had no idea that today's incident would ignite a cold and sweeping reckoning across the entire aviation industry. Lauren Hayes looked at the boarding pass as if it were a worthless scrap of paper. She flicked it lightly with the tip of her finger, disdain shadowing the polished face of a chief flight attendant who had lived her entire life inside the invisible bubble of privilege. "You do not belong on this flight." Lauren's voice fell like a blade, thin, sharp cutting without needing to rise, simple but enough to offend. The morning wind on the Malibu runway drifted softly, but it could not blow away the tension coiled tight between two people standing on the aircraft stairs. Behind them, the silver-skinned Gulfstream G700 gleamed cold and powerful like a sleeping beast. But the one who truly held that beast by the leash was being mistaken for an intruder. Dr. Maya Ellington, 38 years old, stood still. No reaction, no step back, no lowering of her head, her face bare of makeup worn. Converse sneakers, a faded hoodie, no logos, no display, no shield. She looked at Lauren the way one looks at a test they have taken too many times, a test she had been forced to take her entire life, in laboratories, in investment boardrooms, in negotiations where she was always the only woman of color in the room. "This is a private flight," Lauren repeated, as if Maya did not understand English. And Maya replied a single word, soft as breath. Lauren tightened her grip on her notebook, her thumb trembling slightly with anger turned back on her. What she saw was not a CEO, not a renowned scientist, not the owner of a multi-billion-dollar charter fleet. All she saw was a woman in inexpensive clothes, stepping into a place where someone like that, in her mind, did not have the right to stand. "Do you have documentation, confirmation, identification, anything at all?" Lauren's voice hardened, each clipped beat landing like a tap of authority, checking its own power. Maya remained still. No anger, no argument. Her gaze was a lake surface, flat and unnervingly calm, a silence that Lauren would later describe as a warning that she was walking straight into catastrophe. Inside the cabin, young attendant Ethan Brooks poked his head out. "Lauren," he said quickly. "She is at the very top of the passenger list confirmed by the system." Lauren spun around. "The system is wrong." Maya let out a short, dry laugh, a sound like metal brushing glass. "You are saying the charter system got the name of the private flight client wrong?" "Yes," Lauren replied without a drop of hesitation. She trusted her instinct, or more accurately, she trusted her prejudice. Maya stepped up one metal stair, the sound echoing like the first drum beat of an opening scene. The invisible camera of fate swung around her, each movement controlled and cinematic. Lauren blocked her immediately. "Stop, I will not let you board this plane until I am certain." Certain of what Maya's voice dropped lower, soft but dangerous like steel forged long enough to turn cold enough to cut. Lauren swallowed. "Certain of who you are." In that moment, Ethan looked out again and saw Maya's eyes, an expression he had never seen on any passenger. Quiet, steady, unapologetic, as if she already knew everything would explode, just not yet. Maya let out a sentence as light as the breeze. "I am the person with the most legitimate reason to step onto this aircraft." Lauren let out a quick, mocking laugh, too fast for her to regret it. "If you were a real client, you would not be dressed like that." The words sliced through the air like metal-tearing fabric, slow, sharp, stinging. An elderly passenger near the cabin door froze. An older couple exchanged glances, half uncomfortable, half curious. Tension rose. The air trembled slightly, as if the plane itself sensed that what was coming was not small. Ethan stepped forward, trying to intervene. "Lauren, enough, I just received verification from ground operations." Lauren raised a hand sharply. "I do not trust your verification, and I certainly do not believe someone like this would charter an entire private jet." "Someone like this?" The phrase dropped heavy enough to fracture the air. Maya lifted an eyebrow, not angry, not hurt, simply observing Lauren as if she were a behavioral specimen in a psychology experiment. "Fine," Maya said. "If you want to know who I am, ask the correct question." Lauren stepped back half a pace, though pride kept her spine straight. "I do not need to ask. I only need to do my job." Maya looked directly into her eyes. "I am afraid you are doing it wrong." Lauren snapped back instantly. "I am the one who decides who gets on this aircraft." A silence spread wide, deep, suffocating. Then Maya spoke the sentence that shattered it. "No, I am the one who decides." Lauren blinked, confused. "What did you say?" Maya did not answer. She simply walked past Lauren, her steps slow, firm, powerful like the rising tempo of a symphony nearing its crescendo. Ethan stepped aside instinctively. No one taught him that reaction. He moved because it felt right, because the woman walking toward him did not resemble any passenger who had ever boarded this plane. As soon as Maya stepped onto the cabin floor, Lauren snapped back to life and shouted, "Stop! If you take one more step, I will ban you from this aircraft." Maya turned her head, not her whole body, just a slight, cinematic pivot, sharp as a blade. The look she gave made Lauren freeze, as if a knife had been placed against her throat. "You do not have that authority." Maya spoke slowly, each word falling like an order. Lauren lashed out instinctively. "Who are you to dare?" Maya stepped half a pace forward, her gaze locking onto Lauren. A faint smile, cold and dangerous, curled at the corner of her lips like a storm signal. "I," Maya said, "am the reason this aircraft exists." No one understood. No one dared to ask. Only one thing was certain. Lauren had provoked the wrong person. The auxiliary engine wind swirled through the tense silence, as if the sky itself knew that the power twist was approaching. And when it arrived, it would shatter every assumption, every privilege, every belief Lauren had ever thought was true. Lauren refused to step back. Frustration, arrogance, and a vague sense of fear tangled together, pushing her to stride straight into the cabin, as if she had the authority to determine the fate of the woman who had just boarded. But the moment the cabin door closed, the invisible balance of power shifted. What Lauren failed to see was that every pair of eyes inside the cabin was watching her and Maya with increasing tension. No one spoke, but the contrast in presence was undeniable. One side aggressive, the other quiet as ice. That silence only made Lauren more uneasy. Maya placed her small bag into the overhead compartment with movements that were sure precise, leaving no wasted motion. She sat in the single seat in the middle row, her posture confident, completely at odds with her simple appearance. The way she occupied space without displaying anything drew the attention of those who were sensitive to power. Lauren marched forward and stopped right at the edge of the seat. "I will ask one last time. Do you or do you not have documents proving you have the right to be on this flight?" Her voice was sharp enough to sound like grinding teeth. Maya did not look at Lauren. She kept her eyes on the window as if observing something far more important. When she answered, her voice was soft, but carried enough force to cut through the air. "I have already been confirmed twice. You are trying to create a problem that does not exist." Lauren slammed her notebook against the seat frame. "I do not accept that." The cabin stretched tight like a drawn string. Ethan stepped over, trying to defuse the moment. "Lauren, the information matches. Ground operations already reconfirmed it." But Lauren shoved his hand away, unwilling to lose face in front of a subordinate. "She's trying to fool us. The client renting the G700 this week has top-level clearance. No one like her would step on board without triggering multiple security checks." She said it loudly enough for the entire cabin to hear. Maya slowly turned her head. Her eyes met Lauren's like a cold blade. "And you think someone like me cannot be that level of client?" The passengers behind them lowered their newspapers. Silence grew tight. Lauren stepped half a pace closer, her voice dropping into a direct challenge. "You want me to believe you looking like that, dressed like that, acting like this?" The final line struck like a slap made of words. Maya closed her eyes for a brief moment, as if storing this entire incident somewhere deeper in her memory. When she opened them, her gaze was sharper. "You do not need to believe. You only need to follow protocol." Lauren laughed. "Protocol, I am the protocol." Ethan narrowed his eyes. He knew that when someone said that they had crossed a line. But before he could say anything, Lauren grabbed Maya's wrist, trying to force her up. Maya pulled her arm back instantly. "Do not touch me." That calmness struck Lauren's pride, like a match hitting a full barrel of gasoline. She snapped. Her hand flew across Maya's face, a sharp, hard slap that made the entire cabin gasp. The sound cracked through the space like a small gunshot. Ethan froze. The elderly couple behind them jolted. No one understood what had just happened. Maya did not spring up. She did not shout. She did not strike back. She simply looked at Lauren, her hand touching her cheek, her expression holding no anger and no pain, only a chilling stillness. Lauren stepped back half a pace, feeling a warning instinct crawl up her spine for the first time that day. Ethan broke the silence. "Lauren, my God, what did you just do?" Lauren stammered, her voice cracking. I just... She would not." Ethan looked straight at her, horrified. "You just slapped the owner of this aircraft?" Lauren's face drained of color. "I what?" Ethan spoke each word slowly, as if delivering a sentence. "This is Dr. Maya Ellington, Chief Executive Officer of Orion Aerospace, owner of Ellington Private Charter, the legal owner of the G700 you are serving on." The cabin collapsed into stunned silence. Lauren stood frozen, as if her blood had been drained. Ethan stared at Maya without blinking, as if watching a storm forming in real time. Maya lowered her hand. Her cheek was burning red, but her eyes didn't change. Her silence was no longer defensive. It was power. Cold, sharp, quiet power that could not be resisted. The entire cabin sat motionless, sensing that something was taking shape after this moment. Something far beyond a conflict between two people. It had become a mirror for an entire industry. And the most terrifying part was that Maya had not spoken a single judgment yet. Her silence was only the beginning. The cabin sank into a silence heavy, as lead the kind of silence every nervous system could feel, but no one dared to break. Lauren stood frozen, as if the floor beneath her had just cracked open. Maya remained still, her fingers lightly touching the place where the slap had landed, not out of pain, but as if measuring the magnitude of the mistake standing in front of her. Ethan looked at Maya, then at Lauren, then around the cabin, as if searching for something solid to hold on to. His heart pounded like a drumbeat. He knew this had gone far beyond protocol, far beyond job titles, far beyond any professional risk he had ever imagined. No one in the industry wanted to be a witness to a slap aimed at the chief executive officer and owner of the very aircraft they were working on. Lauren was the one who broke the silence, but her voice was no longer the voice of someone in control. It was the voice of someone sinking. "I didn't know I didn't mean to." Maya lifted her head. "You meant every second of it." The words sliced through the air. Lauren blinked rapidly, her breath short, her face twitching from the shock. "I did not know who you were." Maya responded instantly, not allowing even a heartbeat to slip through. "If I were no one, you would still have slapped me." The sentence hit Lauren deeper than any punishment could. Ethan felt a chill crawl down his spine. The way Maya spoke was like she was laying down bricks for a verdict Lauren had no escape from. At the far end of the cabin, an older man lowered his newspaper. His wife stopped knitting. They avoided eye contact, but they heard every word. No one intervened, because no one was foolish enough to choose the wrong side in a moment like this. Ethan stepped forward, his voice small but urgent. "Dr. Ellington, we can stop the flight and report the incident. We can give you a private room in the VIP lounge if you prefer." Maya shook her head. "No. We fly." Lauren choked on the air. You want me to stay?" Maya turned toward the window. "I want you to sit through this entire flight as if nothing happened, as if you did not destroy your own career in 3 seconds." She paused, then added, "That will be far worse than anything I could say." Lauren trembled. Ethan looked at her like she was a countdown clock. No one knew which part of Maya's statement crushed Lauren, more the words or the way she said them. The auxiliary engine started up. The wind pressed against the fuselage, the cabin vibrating lightly. Ethan had no choice but to return to his position to prepare for takeoff. Lauren stepped back by instinct, her tongue stiff as if something were choking it. Maya looked at no one anymore. She opened her phone, scrolling calmly, as if returning to her own world, a world where every decision weighed heavier than metal, and every mistake came with a cost sharper than blood. Lauren took her seat, though her hands would not stay still. They trembled so hard she had to clamp them against her seatbelt. Her mind twisted between fear, shame, and the horrifying awareness of who was sitting in this cabin. Ethan stood at the front, glancing at Maya again. When their eyes met, his heart stopped for a beat. There was no anger in her eyes, no revenge, only silent calculation, the kind of cold intelligence that belonged to someone who carried the weight of an entire aviation empire. The aircraft surged down the runway, the acceleration stretching the air. And in the moment, the wheels caught the wind. One truth burned bright as daylight. Lauren had not just slapped the wrong passenger. She had slapped the center of power in a system she once believed she belonged to. 3 minutes after the plane reached cruising altitude, the cabin drowned in the heaviest silence Ethan had ever witnessed. No rustling bags, no drink requests, no quiet conversation. Only the steady hum of engines and the breaths of 3 people living through 3 different states of collapse, injustice, and control. Lauren stared down at her own hands, as if they had betrayed her. Ethan watched Maya trying to decipher what she might be thinking. Maya turned a page in the thick binder. She carried diagrams, technical blueprints, restructuring plans resting beneath the same hand that had signed deals rewriting the history of aviation. She did not need to say, "I will deal with this." She only needed to sit there, silent, steady sharp as a laser cut. Lauren could not take it anymore. She finally spoke, her voice trembling like a dry leaf. "Dr. Ellington, I truly did not intend." Maya closed the binder, her eyes striking straight into Lauren. "What exactly are you apologizing for your actions, or the fact that the person you chose to slap has more power than you expected?" Lauren swallowed. "I am apologizing because I was wrong." Maya tilted her head. "And if today I were not Dr. Maya Ellington, would you feel wrong?" Lauren's tears fell. She had no answer because she could not lie under that gaze. Maya looked at her one more beat, then turned away. "The answer is clear. We do not need to say anything further." The cabin darkened in silence. Maya reopened her binder. A page slipped out the header, reading Orion Aviation Internal Culture Restructuring Policy. Ethan glanced at it, his chest tightening. He understood. Maya was not simply the victim of a slap. She was the storm that would rewrite the rules. Lauren buried her face in her trembling hands. Maya's silence was not just silence. It was a sentence. The small conference room door at the back of the cabin opened to the heavy footsteps of Captain Roland Mitchell. He was not the type to be easily shaken, but the tension on his face made it clear he had heard enough to understand that this incident was no longer a matter between a flight attendant and a passenger. This was a crisis capable of shaking the headquarters of Orion Aviation before the plane even touched the ground. He looked around the cabin. Lauren kept her head down. Ethan stood frozen, and Maya sat with her back straight, one hand resting lightly on her binder. No wasted movement. No tremor. Her silence hit like an invisible blow, making the captain feel as if he were stepping into an executive board meeting rather than a business-class cabin. "Dr. Ellington," he said, his voice low and rough, as he held back a mix of shame and respect. "I would like to speak with you in private." Maya closed the binder, a soft click that made Lauren flinch as if she had been slapped again. Maya stood, walked past Lauren without looking at her. That dismissal cut deeper than any raised voice. The captain opened the conference room door. Maya entered first. Ethan closed it behind them, then stood outside like a soldier awaiting a verdict. Inside the soundproof room, soft lighting fell across the small wooden table. Maya sat legs crossed, gaze sharp as a straight line. Roland Mitchell sat opposite her, hands intertwined on the table, a gesture that failed to hide his unease. "I just contacted headquarters," he said, his voice dropping further. "They confirmed everything about you, about ownership, about your leadership of the internal reform project." Maya didn't react. "I know." Roland exhaled the sound of a man aware that this was not the time to hide anything. "We owe you an official apology. What happened is unacceptable. There is no space for excuses." Maya looked straight at him, neither soft nor forgiving. "Correct." "There is not." The captain nodded, as if receiving another verdict. "I need to know how you want to proceed. I will file the report. Lauren will be suspended as soon as we land." Maya opened the binder and pulled out a thick set of documents, neatly numbered. "I do not want her suspended before we land," she said, her voice flat. "I want her to stay on this flight. I want her to feel the full weight of her actions before facing any procedure." Roland studied Maya, finally understanding something many people never grasped. Real power does not shout. It speaks quietly, and it is heard. Maya placed the documents in the middle of the table. "I am implementing Orion's cultural reform policy. Bias, abusive authority, misconduct shielded by seniority. Everything must be erased." She tilted her head slightly. "What just happened is proof of why it is necessary." Roland picked up the documents. His eyes skimmed through the major sections: mandatory bias, training behavioral bias, assessment tools, transparent misconduct procedures, open reporting channels without anonymity, direct authority granted to shareholder oversight. He set the documents down. "You want to accelerate it?" "Immediately," Maya said. "One sentence, one command." Roland nodded. "I will fully support it." Maya watched him for a second, as if measuring the truthfulness of his promise. "Good." When they stepped out, Lauren jumped to her feet, as if jolted by electricity. She did not dare look Maya in the eyes. Her gaze glued instead to her own fingers, the same fingers that had delivered a slap, capable of destroying her career. Maya walked past her, pausing for half a second, just long enough to release a sentence soft as breath, yet sharp as a blade. "You had no idea who you were talking to. And that is the problem." Lauren froze, lips pressed tight, unable to speak. Maya returned to her seat and retrieved her binder. Roland retreated to the cockpit. Ethan went back to the galley, though. He could not hide the shift in how he saw Maya. The moment she stepped out of that room, he understood why the entire industry feared people like her. Not because she was wealthy, not because of her title, but because she held a kind of power they could not control, the kind that stayed silent, waited and struck at the exact moment it needed to. The plane pushed through the eastern sky, slicing through layers of clouds. But inside the cabin, the air was thick enough to choke. Lauren sat squeezed into the jump seat, her eyes empty. Every small noise in the cabin seemed magnified: the click of a buckle, the turning of a pen, the whisper of paper. Each sound felt like another verdict delivered onto her shoulders. When Ethan quietly approached and handed Maya a glass of water, he spoke softly, his voice filled with a rare sincerity. "Dr. Ellington, I just want to say I am very sorry." Maya accepted the glass. "You are not the one who needs to apologize." Ethan glanced at Lauren, then back at Maya. I just hate seeing something like this happen." Maya answered, "You have seen this your whole life. Today it simply stood in the place where it needed to be seen clearly." Ethan fell silent. Lauren heard every word. Each one pierced deeper into the swelling regret inside her. A soft ding sounded from the cabin panel, the reminder for the crew that the flight had reached stable cruising. But that small sound was not enough to drown out the truth that Lauren felt like she was sitting on a flight carrying her own sentence. Maya opened the binder again, the rustle of paper sharp in the heavy air. From Lauren's seat, she could read the heading on the new page, as if it had been written specifically for her. "Misconduct does not come from lack of knowledge. It comes from misplaced power." Lauren swallowed her throat so dry it hurt. "And Maya," she continued reading, continued noting, continued preparing. No anger, no trembling, no raised voice. She was the center of the storm. And she was also the one steering it. One truth began to surface clearly. Lauren had not simply struck the wrong person. She had triggered a change the airline now had no way to escape. Lauren could no longer feel her hands. They had gone cold numb, as if the blood inside them had been drained by the fear spreading through her. She pressed herself against the jump seat, trying to keep her breathing steady, but she could not. Every breath hurt like needles scraping across her chest. In the middle row, Maya turned another page in her binder, jotting down a few concise, precise lines. Every movement she made pulled Lauren deeper into the abyss. Ethan stood in the galley watching Lauren through the doorway. He had never seen a chief flight attendant look like this, a person used to wielding authority over others, now shrinking before someone who did not need to speak a word to hold complete control. Ethan stepped forward and gently placed a bottle of water on the table beside Maya. "If you need anything else, just call me," he said, his voice low but sincere. Maya gave a slight nod. That small acknowledgement eased Ethan's chest a little, as if he had been released from the heavy, cold air suffocating the cabin. Lauren remained seated, not daring to lift her head, not daring to look at anyone unsure of what to do. A passenger in the back, a man in his 60s, looked up from his newspaper, then at Lauren, then at Maya. He exhaled slowly and shook his head. Not disappointment. Horror. As if he had just witnessed someone signing their own death warrant. Lauren could not bear that gaze. She sprang to her feet, wobbled, then tried to regain the professional posture she had once taken pride in. But it was now crooked, trembling like an actor forgetting lines on stage. She walked toward Maya, her legs feeling disconnected from her will. "Dr. Ellington." Lauren's voice broke, trembling with fear. Could I speak with you for a moment?" Maya did not lift her head. "You are speaking already." Lauren swallowed her throat, dry and raw. "I know I was wrong. I had no reason. I only wanted you to know I am not that kind of person. I did not want anyone to think I, Maya, set her pen down." She lifted her head, her eyes deep and cold like a winter lake. "You were that kind of person." Lauren stepped back half a pace. "I just reacted too quickly. I was stressed. I just wanted to protect," Maya cut in. "You did not react too quickly. You reacted exactly as what was already in your mind. And today it came out." Ethan stood motionless, not blinking. He had never heard anyone speak to Lauren like that. But what froze him was not the words, it was the truth in Maya's voice. It carried no emotion, no malice, only an undeniable accuracy. Lauren tried to breathe, but her lungs felt crushed. "I know I am losing my job. I know it is all over. But please understand, I didn't think you were the charter client." "I didn't know." Maya tilted her head, her gaze slicing through Lauren like ultraviolet light. "You did not know because you never imagined it could be possible. In your eyes, the shape of a person in power always looks a certain way." Lauren gasped. She wanted to protest, but the words stuck in her throat. She knew Maya was right. That truth made her feel sick. That truth made her realize her life had been built on judgments that seemed harmless until today, when they became a slap in her own face. Maya continued. "You did not apologize to me at the time. You only apologized when you knew who I was. That is not contrition. That is fear." Lauren broke down. She could not hold back any longer. No masks remained. I just want to make it right." Maya looked at her, her gaze unmoving. "The mistake was not the slap. The mistake was the way you judged others before knowing who they were." Ethan looked away. He did not want Lauren to see him cry, partly from pity, partly from shame, partly from realizing he had also remained silent many times in the past when witnessing the same. Lauren wobbled, clutching the seat for support, but still had to ask, as if a desperate instinct demanded she cling to any remaining hope. "Is there any chance for me? Even a small chance?" Maya looked at her for a long moment, long enough that Lauren felt time fracture into pieces. "Opportunity does not come from fear of punishment," Maya said, her voice low and sharp. "Opportunity only comes from real change." Lauren opened her mouth to ask, "What must I do?" But no words came. She knew that question belonged to those seeking forgiveness. instead of taking responsibility. Maya closed the binder. We will speak after landing. Not now. I need to see how you face this for the remaining 3 hours. Lauren did not ask more. She did not dare. She stepped back to the jump seat, her legs trembling hard, feeling as if it would fall from her chest. No one in the cabin looked at her the same way. Respect was gone. Understanding was gone. Only remained the image of a person standing before the ruins of their own blind confidence. Ethan looked at Maya. "Are you sure you want her to stay?" Maya replied without looking at him. "Staying is the first punishment, and it is the first test." Ethan bowed his head. "Yes." Maya opened the binder again, reading further pen, moving to jot down a few more lines. Lauren watched from afar, her hands going cold at the sight of the writing. She knew she had not just struck the wrong person. She had struck the future of her own life, and now Maya Ellington was rewriting it. The G700 glided gently through the clouds, yet the cabin felt heavy, as if it carried the weight of the entire world. Maya opened her binder, her eyes focused on every line of notes, every restructuring diagram, every plan she had prepared for weeks. She did not need to shout. She did not need to apply pressure. Her power lay in her silence, in the way she controlled every breath, every movement, every glance. Lauren sat motionless, hands gripping the seat eyes glistening with unshed tears. She felt every passing second like the ticking of a clock counting down her own sentence. Every silent minute of Maya was a cut into the arrogance Lauren had worn as armor. She knew the more she resisted, the deeper her regret would run. Ethan stood near the galley, observing everything. He could clearly feel the weight of authority Maya projected into the space. No unnecessary movements, no smiles, just the presence of real power, quiet, shattering all false confidence. Lauren exhaled, trying to calm herself. She glanced around the cabin and saw passengers secretly watching phones recording every detail. Everything was being witnessed. Impossible to deny. Impossible to escape. She realized she was the center of a judgment whose outcome had already been determined. Maya finished writing a passage, folded her pen, then lifted her glass of water, drinking slowly. The gesture was gentle, but carried the weight of a threat. Lauren did not dare look. Ethan furrowed his brow, realizing that Maya was not just punishing Lauren. She was sending a message to the entire cabin. This is true. Power, no need for display, no need to shout. Lauren tried to breathe, but each breath sounded clearly mingling fear and remorse. She thought of the slap, thought of the power she had believed she held. Everything was collapsing, and Lauren knew she would never stand in that position again if Maya remained determined. Maya placed her hand on the binder, tilted her head, and looked at Lauren again. Her gaze was like a laser devoid of emotion, pure reason. She spoke slowly, firmly, loud enough for Lauren to catch each syllable. "You have looked at me through the eyes of prejudice. Now you will learn to see others with true eyes." Lauren broke down crying, unable to deny anything. She knew the slap was not just a wrongful act. It was the manifestation of an outdated mindset, a mindset Maya was dismantling, a mindset that anyone carrying prejudice would have to pay for. The plane passed through thick layers of cloud morning light, pouring into the cabin, casting a glow on Lauren's flushed face, her hands gripping the seathead bowed. Everything she once considered power now felt like a burden. Ethan watched Maya, recognizing that she was controlling the entire space, controlling the emotions of everyone around her simply through her silence and presence. Maya continued reading the documents, turning the page. On the new page, bold letters stood out. "We do not change culture with words. We change it with action and silence that carries weight." Lauren followed her gaze. She did not fully understand, but she could feel the invisible pressure, heavy as metal, pressing into every chest in the cabin. She knew Maya had won the first battle, and the real battle in Lauren's mind had only just begun. Ethan stood silently feeling the breath of every passenger. They were quiet. They were observing. Everyone realized that what had just occurred was more than a personal conflict. It was a mirror showing how power, prejudice, and silence form a lesson for the entire aviation industry. Maya closed the binder one final time and set it beside the seat. She did not need to say anything more. Just sitting there was enough. Lauren looked at her body, trembling, realizing she had just confronted a kind of power she had never experienced, a silent authority that dominated the entire cabin, absolute, sharp, and colder than anything she had ever known. The G700 glided through the thick layers of clouds, yet the cabin remained heavy, dense with silence. Maya sat upright, her gaze calm, yet sharp as a blade, her hands resting lightly on the binder containing the entire restructuring plan. No shouting, no pressure. Her power was conveyed through the smallest details, the way she placed her glass of water, the way she lifted her pen, the way she maintained composure in the chaos Lauren had just unleashed. Lauren hunched over, staring at the table hands gripping the seat. Each breath felt like a knife pressed into her consciousness, a reminder that she had committed an unforgivable mistake. She had slapped the wrong person, and that person was no one ordinary. She was the CEO of the very airline Lauren served. Every detail of the cabin became amplified, sunlight streaming through the window onto Lauren's flushed face, the soft rustle of Maya's binder, the click of the seatbelt, the whispers of passengers around them. Everything became evidence proof of who was right, who was wrong, and where power truly lay. Ethan watched silently from the galley, heart pounding. He could feel the weight of Maya's silence. No orders, no shouting, just a look, a single breath enough to make everyone in the cabin recognize true authority. That presence was overwhelming, making Lauren tremble. She realized she had no footing left, every ounce of perceived power shattered. Lauren drew a deep breath, trying to maintain professionalism, but the quiver in her own voice betrayed everything. She glanced around the cabin, passengers secretly observing phones recording every detail, eyes revealing curiosity and outrage. There was no escaping, no denying. She understood that the slap was more than wrongdoing. It was the manifestation of ingrained prejudice now exposed to everyone. Maya turned another page in the binder, jotting down a few sharp, deliberate lines. Each word pressed into Lauren's mind, each beat like a warning drum. Actions, attitude, decisions, all have consequences. She set the pen down, lifted her glass of water, and drank her motion light but commanding. Lauren did not dare look. Ethan realized that Maya was punishing Lauren by controlling the cabin, controlling time, controlling her mind without a single word. Lauren breathed rapidly, chest heavy, feeling the pressure of every small movement Maya made. She realized she had encountered a power she could neither comprehend nor resist. She tried to shrink into the seat, gripping it tightly, yet her eyes stayed locked on Maya, drawn to every detail: how she sat, how she moved, how she held herself in perfect composure. Everything Lauren had once believed to be power was now meaningless. Maya tilted her head, looking at Lauren with cold clarity, but without anger. Her voice was low, firm, deliberate. "You have looked at me through the eyes of prejudice. Now you will learn to see others through their true eyes." Lauren tried to respond, but could not. Every word was stuck in her throat. She knew any objection would be futile against the calm and authority Maya wielded. The plane continued through the thick clouds, morning light streaming through the windows, illuminating the cabin, highlighting every detail. Lauren's flushed face hands, clenched eyes wide, her body trembling. She knew she had not just slapped the wrong person. She had encountered a power she could never hope to resist. Maya reopened her binder, reading each line, restructuring plans, bias control, retraining, all personnel transparency in all processes. Ethan watched her, understanding that no explanation was needed. The cabin was witnessing a silent storm of authority, and Lauren was at its center. Lauren froze, realizing a cold truth. Real power does not shout, does not display, and does not require consent. It is silent. It dominates. And today, it was teaching her a lesson in truth, justice, and responsibility she would never forget. The G700 cut through thick layers of clouds, morning light streaming through the windows, illuminating the business-class cabin, highlighting every detail, every gesture, every expression. The silence was heavy, dense, pressing down on every breath. Maya Ellington sat upright, hands resting lightly on her thick binder, containing her full reform plan. Eyes cold, but intensely focused. She did not need to shout or give orders. Simply through her presence and absolute composure, she commanded the cabin. Every subtle movement, every breath carried weight, causing Lauren Hayes to curl into her seat, trembling hands gripping the armrests, heart pounding each beat like a hammer against her chest. She realized the power she thought she held had vanished completely. Ethan Brooks stood silently in the galley, watching everything in astonishment. He understood that the cabin was no longer just the scene of a personal conflict, but a living demonstration of how true power operates. No shouting, no display, just silence and absolute control. Every passenger felt the weight, every gaze fixed on Maya, recognizing the difference between nominal authority and genuine power. Maya lifted her glass of water and drank slowly, each movement, gentle but weighted with authority, making Lauren tremble further. The cabin seemed to hold its breath. Every sound became pronounced: the click of a seatbelt, the rustle of Maya's binder, the passenger's breathing. Every detail confirmed that behavior, attitude, and authority were being observed. Lauren realized she was standing in front of a storm she could not resist, with Maya at the center, silent but overwhelming. Lauren broke down crying. She understood that the slap had not been the greatest mistake. The greatest mistake was the way she had judged others, based on prejudice, on appearances now exposed before the entire cabin. Every word from Maya, every piercing gaze was a judgment, a warning. Wrongful actions always have consequences, and today those consequences were evident to every passenger. Maya tilted her head, eyes piercing her voice, low and sharp. You did not apologize for the act. You only apologized because I have power. Fear not, contrition runs down your spine. Lauren shivered, feeling each word strike her heart. Every past action, every prejudice had converged in this moment, and today she would pay. Maya opened her binder, flipping to the reform plan, mandatory bias training for all staff, transparent procedures, public handling of misconduct, and direct shareholder oversight. Each item was a pointed reminder. True power is not about title or money. It is the ability to enforce fairness, compel others to face the truth and reflect on themselves. Lauren shrank into her seat, hands gripping the armrests, eyes wide. She realized she had no standing, all her false authority, now meaningless. Every small movement of Maya was like a cold blade, pressing deep into the instinct to control, into the fear of exposure. The cabin had become witness to silent yet overwhelming power, a direct lesson inescapable. Maya closed the binder and placed it beside her seat. She did not need to speak. Her presence alone was enough. Lauren stared at her body, trembling, unable to respond. She knew she had not only slapped the wrong person, she had confronted a force capable of rewriting the rules, reshaping culture, and forcing everyone to face the truth. The cabin had become a testament to true authority, silent, sharp, absolute, and overwhelming every judgment. Ethan stood silently, realizing that what had just occurred was more than a personal event. This was a power twist where Maya Ellington, an unassuming woman, controlled the entire cabin through presence, absolute control, and weighted silence. No one dared challenge her. No one. Lauren knew it, heart-racing, body trembling, realizing the slap had been only the beginning. The real consequences, the true power and the sweeping change were forming in the cabin, and all she could do was watch. The cabin had become a symbolic space, silent authority, prejudice exposed, and lessons on fairness, responsibility, and awareness etched deeply. Every glance, every action, every breath carried meaning. Maya Ellington was not merely the victim of a violent act. She was the center of power, the one directing the story, the one rewriting the rules. Lauren, with all her former confidence and false authority, could only face the consequences and the truth she had created. Maya's silence was judgment. Her presence was authority. The cabin remained silent, heavy, but full of meaning. Wrongful actions, prejudice, and inflated ego all come at a price. And today everyone witnessed that lesson, vividly, directly, and indelibly. Maya opened the binder one final time, writing a few more lines. She did not need to speak, eyes focused, calm. Lauren sat, frozen, body trembling. She understood that the slap was not the conclusion, but the beginning of learning to face the truth. Take responsibility and recognize that every prejudice and assumption would be exposed in the face of undeniable reality. The cabin was submerged in the weight of power. Maya didn't need to display it. With a glance, a gesture, and absolute composure, she controlled the entire space, awakened every perception, and demonstrated that true power lies in silence, sharp, weighted, and irresistible. The G700 glided through thick clouds, morning light streaming through the windows, illuminating the business-class cabin and highlighting every detail, every gesture, every expression. The silence in the cabin was heavy, dense, as if every breath was pressed tight, forcing everyone to feel its weight. Maya Ellington sat upright, hands resting lightly on the thick binder containing her complete reform plan. Her eyes were cold, razor-sharp, and focused. She said nothing, no shouting, no overt display of authority. Simply through her presence and absolute composure, Maya commanded the cabin. Every small movement, every breath she took carried weight, making Lauren Hayes sit stiff, trembling hands, gripping the armrests. Her heart raced each beat like a hammer against her chest, showing her that the power she once believed she held had completely vanished. Ethan Brooks stood silently in the galley, watching every movement with astonishment. He understood that the cabin was no longer the scene of a personal conflict, but a living demonstration of how true power operates. It does not need to shout, it does not need to display it, only requires presence, absolute control, and the recognition of all around it. Every passenger felt it. Every gaze was drawn to Maya, understanding the difference between nominal authority and real power. Maya lifted her glass of water and drank slowly, each delicate movement loaded with authority, making Lauren tremble further. The cabin seemed to hold its breath. Every sound became amplified. The click of seatbelts, the rustle of Maya's binder, the passengers breathing. Every detail confirmed that behavior, attitude, and power were being noted immediately. Lauren realized she was standing before a storm she could not resist, with Maya at the center, silent yet overwhelming. Lauren broke down, crying. She understood that the slap was not the greatest mistake. The greatest mistake was the prejudice embedded in her mind, now exposed before the entire cabin. Every word from Maya, every piercing gaze was judgment, a warning wrongful actions have consequences, and today those consequences were evident to every passenger. Maya tilted her head, eyes piercing her voice, low and sharp. You did not apologize for your action. You only apologized because I have power. Fear not contrition ran down your spine. Lauren trembled, feeling each word strike her heart. Every past action, every prejudice converged in this moment, and today she would pay. Maya opened her binder, flipping to the reform section, mandatory bias training for all employees, transparent procedural mechanisms, public handling of misconduct, direct shareholder oversight. Each item was a pointed reminder. True power is not title or wealth. It is the ability to enforce fairness, compel others to face the truth and reflect on themselves. Lauren shrank hands, gripping the seat eyes wide. She realized she had no standing, all her false authority meaningless. Every small movement by Maya was like a cold blade, pressing deep into the instinct to control, into the fear of being exposed. The cabin had become a witness to silent but overwhelming power, a direct lesson inescapable. Maya closed the binder and placed it beside her seat. She did not need to speak. Her presence alone was enough. Lauren stared, body trembling, unable to respond. She knew she had not just slapped the wrong person, she had confronted power, capable of rewriting the rules, reshaping the culture, forcing everyone to face the truth. The cabin had become a testament to true authority, silent, sharp, absolute, and overwhelming every judgment. Ethan stood silently, realizing that what had just occurred was more than a personal event. It was a power twist where Maya Ellington, an unassuming woman, controlled the entire cabin with presence, absolute control, and weighted silence. No one dared to challenge her. No one. Lauren knew it, heart-racing body, trembling, realizing the slap had been only the beginning. The real consequences, the real power, and the sweeping change were forming in that cabin, and all she could do was watch. The cabin became a symbolic space, silent authority, prejudice exposed, and lessons in fairness, responsibility, and awareness deeply etched. Every glance, every action, every breath carried meaning. Maya Ellington was not merely the victim of an act of violence. She was the center of power, the one directing the story, the one rewriting the rules. Lauren, with all her prior confidence and false authority, could only face the consequences and the truth she had created. Maya's silence was judgment. Her presence was authority. The cabin was silent, heavy, yet full of meaning. Wrongful actions, prejudice, and inflated ego all come at a price. And today, Everyone witnessed that lesson vividly, directly, and indelibly. Maya opened the binder one final time, writing a few more lines. She did not need to speak, eyes focused, calm. Lauren sat frozen, body trembling. She understood that the slap was not the conclusion, but the beginning of learning to face the truth, take responsibility, and recognize that every prejudice and assumption would be exposed in the face of undeniable truth. The cabin was submerged in the weight of power. Maya did not need to display it. With a glance, a gesture, and absolute composure, she controlled the entire space, awakened every perception, and demonstrated that true power lies in silence, sharp-weighted and irresistible. The G700 glided through thick clouds, morning light streaming through the windows, illuminating the business-class cabin, as if highlighting every detail, every moment that had just unfolded. The silence was heavy, dense, each breath like a warning drumbeat, forcing everyone in the cabin to feel its weight. Maya Ellington sat upright, hands resting lightly on the thick binder, her eyes cold but razor-sharp. She said nothing. No need to flaunt authority through words or gestures. Every action of hers made the cabin recognize that true power is not derived from title or wealth, but from commanding silence, absolute control, and the ability to observe every detail, every heartbeat, every subtle motion. Lauren Hayes sat rigid hands, gripping the armrests, her body trembling. Her heart pounded like a hammer against her chest, each breath slicing through her consciousness like a knife. She knew she had made an irreparable mistake. She had just slapped the wrong person, and that person was no one other than the CEO, the rightful owner of the aircraft she served. Every detail, every gesture she had used as a weapon before was now a burden evidence of a power she could not oppose. Sunlight hit her flushed face, filtered through the window, creating a cinematic image, a visual sentence that no words could conceal. Ethan Brooks stood silently in the galley, watching every breath, every glance, every movement. He realized this was no longer a personal conflict. What had just occurred was a living demonstration of how true power operates. No shouting, no yelling, only presence, only silent control. And everyone must acknowledge it. He felt the pressure radiate through the cabin, as if every passenger were observing and judging every action, every thought of Lauren and Maya. Maya lifted her glass of water and drank slowly, each gentle motion weighted with authority enough to make Lauren tremble. The cabin became a portrait of silent power, where every mistake, every prejudice was exposed. Lauren realized she was standing in the eye of a storm she could not resist, while Maya remained the center, silent, expressionless, commanding through presence alone. Lauren broke down, unable to hold back. She understood that the slap was not the greatest mistake. The greatest mistake was the prejudice embedded in her mind, now revealed before everyone. Every word Maya spoke, every glance she gave Lauren, carried a strong message. Wrongful actions not only reveal character, but create consequences, and these consequences were on full display for all to see. Maya tilted her head, eyes piercing. Her voice was low and sharp. You did not apologize for the act. You only apologized because I have power. Fear not contrition ran down your spine. Lauren trembled, feeling each word strike her heart. She understood that every past action, every instance of prejudice had converged in this moment, and today she would pay. Maya opened her binder, flipping to the section outlining the reform plan. The main items appeared: mandatory bias, training for all staff, full transparency, in procedures public handling of misconduct, direct oversight by shareholders. Each point was a sharp warning. True power is not a title. It is the ability to correct behavior and enforce fairness, no matter who stands before it. Ethan stood outside, realizing that this cabin was witnessing a silent, yet overwhelming power, and Lauren was at its center. Lauren slumped into her seat, hands gripping the armrests, eyes wide, body trembling. She understood that the slap was not just a personal wrongdoing. It exposed her nature and confronted her with real power she had never seen, calm, precise, silent, and capable of crushing all arrogance. Maya closed the binder, placing it beside her, maintaining absolute composure. She did not need to say another word. Her presence alone was enough. Lauren looked at her body shaking, realizing she had not only struck the wrong person, but had touched a force strong enough to rewrite the rules of the industry. The cabin had become a witness to change, to prejudice exposed, and to true power, silent, sharp, and absolute. Every moment of this flight would resonate in Lauren's mind for the rest of her life. Maya Ellington's story is not just an incident on a flight. It is a living testament to how prejudice, misplaced power, and false confidence can lead to dangerous behavior in environments that seem controlled. When an individual understands the rules, remains calm, and fully comprehends the nature of authority, the entire system is forced to confront itself. Maya's silence was not passivity. It was power observation and strategy. It demonstrates that true authority doesn't need to shout, does not need to be publicized. It only needs presence and the ability to make others face the truth. From the perspective of governance, ethics, and systemic reform, this moment is a valuable lesson. Justice and fairness do not come automatically. They emerge when people are precise, steadfast, and understand the value of silence in power. Lauren's uncontrolled behavior reflects the gaps in corporate culture habits, mistaken for norms that in reality cause harm not only to individuals, but to the entire system. If you believe stories like this should be shared to awaken society and make it more just like this video, to spread the message, subscribe to join deeper analysis of power, prejudice, and fairness. Before leaving, leave a very short comment, just 3 words, but strong, reminding all of us of the importance of awareness and responsibility. Stand tall. This is not just a story about a flight, but a reminder for all of us. See people with true eyes, act with genuine responsibility, and hold power wisely in your hands.